Hello, Internet. Welcome back to Capital Council. And as we promised, there was a neighboring country who had just officially had a new president. Which country is it, Adi?
Well, the neighbors that we have are uses presidents as the system would be Philippines as well. So that's they didn't have an election that's so soon. So the next obvious stop would be Indonesia. Prabowo Subianto just assumed office as president just this week after winning the election earlier this year. So we unpacked this a few months back when we analyzed the Indonesian election. What does it meant for Indonesia, or what were the factors that were involved leading to his victory? Because Prabowo has been eyeing this seat for the longest time. He's always wanted to claim Indonesia's number one job position for many decades, and he finally got it. But how he got there, well, you can listen to that previous episode. But now we're going to discuss the implications that we have for moving forward Indonesia with this different, I think, starkly different leader compared to the last president, Joko Widodo. So, Hafiz, what do you make for this inauguration?
I would like to refresh one of the few facts about Prabowo winning his presidential race back in February. He won 58% votes of these, all total votes, and this is his fourth time trying. It's not even third time charm, it's fourth time the charm. And Adi, a lot of people would say that he won because of Jokowi through Gibran. Because if you don't know yet, his running mate was Gibran, and Gibran now is officially the vice president of Indonesia at the age of 37. Yes, previously, constitutionally, it was not allowed to run whoever below 40 years old. But with miraculously, if you have your uncle in the judiciary system and your father was the president of Indonesia, miracle can happen. And so happened that Gibran become the vice president of Indonesia now. Now, Prabowo also is the oldest president ever for Indonesia, and Indonesia only had 7 previous president in the past. And Prabowo Adi is someone you would say very experienced in terms of he was an ex-general. So that's one thing in terms of, if you want to say, working under very stressful condition and regimented and also bureaucratic, right? So government skeleton is in his, the back of his hand. And then now he's been actively, since the last almost 2 decades, actively being a politician, running for the office, and finally he's here. He is a president that I think changed a lot of perception, because from when he was a general, he looks like he has this strongman. He still has that strongman image, especially if you listen to his first ever speech as the president, as soon as he sworn in today. But also at the same time, when you listen to other contents of his speech, he's a very compassionate man. You wouldn't expect certain things that he would say today from his mouth. So especially he's really want to double down on feeding or giving free food to all 84 millions Indonesians children in schools. This is a multi-pronged initiative, because if you give free food to these kids, they will stay in schools. So that's how crucial it is for Indonesia to make sure their youth is it's not going to become a national security issue where they cannot read or illiterate and cannot apply for jobs. To secure Indonesia potential, as I think they are 16th largest economy in the world right now, and if they want to be in the top 10, this is the first step forward to make sure the literacy rate of Indonesians, especially the young ones, to be increased. But to fund this program, is one of the even economists, analysts would say, like, I don't know where he would get this money from. So just to have this additional, it would cost them around 45 billion US dollars. I, that's what, uh, one fifth of Malaysians' total budget. So that's a huge amount by any standard. Of course, yeah, Indonesia is not a small country, and to provide such again socialist kind of program is unheard of in this part of a region. Not Malaysia. I don't even think Brunei do that, right? So it's a big hope that Prabowo would say this in his first ever speech as officially as president of Indonesia, but also he said that he is, using his strongman image. He wants to condemn corruptions and wants to go against this. Just how maybe he learned from Anwar, because these are the things that he keeps saying since he was prime minister 2 years ago. So this is a president that have been a general in the past, now turned politicians, and just finished his term as the Minister of Defense for Indonesia. He has what it takes to bring Indonesia forward. I'm just, I'm just counting in how the people around him would play their role to facilitate Indonesia to greater heights. He is a man with a mission, but no man in an island. So he cannot work alone. I'm not sure Gibran could be there for him in terms of, no offense to Gibran, he is a mayor of Surakarta. Of course, he has his, thinking of his own. But as a vice president is no easy task, especially to assist someone like Prabowo. I mean, he's double his age. He's been through a lot, and it's just, more than what we can see. Yes, Prabowo is a change man, but how's that change translate to his leadership? That's remain to be seen, Ali. What's your first impression as Prabowo now,
I
president?
think when you describe him, I think what I can gather from everything based on the conversation that's had around Prabowo is that he is a very divisive figure here. Maybe domestically it's a very different outlook. It's a different perception, but outside of Indonesia, there's definitely what to make of this new president. Of course, he's considered a hard man, a strong man, type of character, being part of the military, being part of the special forces, and having his own skeletons in the closet as well, which he was very much criticized for back then. And then he has sort of toned down that character to become more of that loving grandfatherly figure, quirky grandfather figure. So there is a shift there, and that is the hallmark of good politician, able to change stripes accordingly to what people want to perceive him as. So, but at the same time, despite a chameleon changing its colors, it's still a chameleon at heart. Who knows? He might carry those hardline sentiments into this presidency, and a huge contrast to his predecessor Jokowi, who is more soft-spoken, a bit more down to earth in a way. He was seen as more able to be appreciated by the everyman, very mild-mannered. And then you see Prabowo, which is more gung ho, more headstrong character and leader. So it's going to be a huge shift, but at the same time, with his Gibran being vice president, it would be an interesting test for Jokowi's scion to see if he has what it takes to take on leadership in the future in maintaining, keeping Prabowo in line here. I think Gibran being vice president is also used as out of a check and balance for Prabowo here. So I think relying on previous president's popularity, because this is the arrangement that was given, is that if Gibran becomes vice president, then support will be given to Prabowo by Jokowi to become a president. And that we've seen this kind of arrangement before in the Philippines. So when Ferdinand Marcos Bongbong Jr. rided on the popularity of the previous president, Rodrigo Duterte. And when that didn't work out, we see that now that Philippines is sort of having a coalition issue right here with the parties trying to work together. That is also a situation that has a potential to happen and erupt in Indonesia as well, depending on how well the internal politics able to manage their own relationship. Now, this is on the domestic side. On the international side, you have Prabowo, who is very a bit more active in terms of foreign policy compared to Jokowi. He is more outgoing. He's willing to fly across and meet all these foreign dignitaries and all these other leaders from different countries. Being himself being able to speak multiple languages, like I think he can speak English, Indonesian, French, a bit of German and Dutch as well, and I think a bit of Arabic as well. So he's someone that is very much geared towards promoting interest in indigenous interests abroad, considering that he has so many messages from and congratulatory messages from his contemporaries in Southeast Asia, our own Prime Minister, congratulating him, Yang Diputan Agung, congratulating him, President Xi Jinping, Singapore Prime Minister Lawrence Wong also paying a visit um, to congratulate him. So he has a lot of these connections, and I think you mentioned this in the previous episode when we covered Indonesia and the BRICS. It's he has a much more enviable relationship with the international community compared to Jokowi. Jokowi, I think, has an enviable support domestically, but I think internationally, Prabowo has it in spades here. And despite that whole strongman character can sometimes be very affable, very someone that people can respect as well. So okay, this person knows what he's doing, so it's easier to do business with someone that's direct, someone that is say what means what they say sort of character. So this would be the assessment that I would have, is that he would be towing some of the line domestically that Jokowi has set out for him. So Jokowi has set out a lot of plans, I think, moving forward with the movement of the capital city to Nusantara in Kalimantan. That is something that the rails have been set out. But of course, he's going to try venture out on his own here. And I think venturing out on his own doesn't mean any kind of domestic shift, but also one that's international. Will we see Indonesia pivoting to different blocks, or will it be taking on a more balanced approach? Now that we've seen that BRICS becoming more and more popular for a lot of countries, we've mulled this before. Will Indonesia do it? They have there's been argument with saying that doesn't and it wants to. Will that change over the years with this presidency? Will it become attractive over time? So that is what I would say as an assessment for this exciting new prospect, this new 72-year-old Indonesian president, former military man as well. So will we see things changing?
I mean, you talk about international relations. I would like to bring it closer to Malaysia-Indonesia relationship. I think this is a golden age where Anwar is the prime minister for Malaysia and Prabowo is the president of Indonesia. These two great men are, friends. We call them BFF. So they would exchange a lot of jokes whenever they meet. Whenever very cordial, into more than cordial. Just like I said, very friendly towards one another. That's on personal level, but on diplomatic level as well, like how Malaysia already committed on upgrading our immigration post in Kuching, in I can't recall the exact area, is it Teluk Beduang or something, and also in Tawau as well. So that with this commitment from Malaysia, I think it gives a clue that Prabowo will continue Nusantara project, as I think what was did before with Jokowi, because there's a rumor saying that with funding these free meals to all the kids, taking a lot of money and other things as well, they would slow down the Nusantara project. So with this, Malaysia already committed in terms of making a holding on the bargain on our side. So the Nusantara needs to be fast tracked as well, because it's been lagging since the pandemic had happened during its construction. So whether Prabowo will let his foot off the gas or not in terms of Nusantara project will remain to be seen. Until we see the completions phase one of Nusantara, then I think we can rest assured that the rest will fall up like a dominoes. Otherwise, Gibran, I think, is there as well, strategically placed by his father to oversee and to remind Prabowo, hey, every time we had a meeting, number one priority on the agenda is Nusantara, none other else. So it's something a chess move that already being it's like 4D chess move by Jokowi to make sure that Nusantara project is to be continued. Um, More on Prabowo also with Anwar is that how we can benefit more from this, as Indonesia is 16th largest economy in the world, and Malaysia now want to position ourselves as a center of AI and hub and whatnot. The proximity of Sumatra with KL also is very close. So maybe a certain region like Sumatra can be, explode to, more integrations in terms of Malaysia and needing a workforce from Indonesia, and Indonesia needing maybe technology transfer or something like that, downstream and upstream in terms of making all these chips, because we want Malaysia wants to move into high value chip production. Maybe we can deal with Indonesia, maybe you can have the not so high value chip, whatever the deal is, right? So it's for them to figure out. And another thing is, another relation for Malaysia and Indonesia is how digitalizations of mates or immigrant workers in Indonesia and Malaysia, because notoriously known for bad treatment from the immigration. So digitalization will be a huge part of making sure all of this nonsense and complaints being made towards both sides will be cease to exist. And these digitalizations will be the ripple effect going to be huge moving forward, as the numbers of people applying for this will be increased in the next 5-10 years. So efficiency is key for these two administrations to make sure their goal are achieved within time. Otherwise, it's just talk, a politician's talk, isn't it?
Yeah, I think how this would play out also domestically in Indonesia. I think we've already seen a lot of the populist rhetoric being thrown around, and I think in counter to that is always going to be this conversation on there's always going to be this whole conversation in Southeast Asia whenever someone comes to power. Is democracy going to be challenged? Is democracy going to be maintained in Southeast Asia? And we've already seen some of that with Prabowo here, is that he does have a bit of a more authoritarian bent compared to Jokowi, which is more answerable and accountable. But in a way, Jokowi himself played the whole political game to ensure that his own son was able to become deputy vice president through constitutional amendment. So this is a tactic that maybe Gibran might employ, with Prabowo also employ as well, seeing how much dividends it also paid off for all of them, all parties involved. Would this uproot democratic practices that has been long sought to be established in Indonesia? That's always going to be something that people would have to consider. There's that Southeast Asia would have to consider as well, as this would impact how a lot of countries would perceive Indonesia and how they would go about with operating with Indonesia. Of course, if people like the leader, then who are we to judge, right? Democratic or not. We've always seen that when it comes to being populist, is that sometimes overrides the need, the necessity for democratic principles to thrive, right? So there's an argument to be thrown out. And I think Prabowo would be uh, reigniting this whole conversation of democratic principles being upheld in Southeast Asia. We've already talked about how it is in Thailand. Indonesia, will we see the same situation? But of course, we do have the balancing factors, which maybe it's foreign partners, which is Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and then how it operates within ASEAN itself. Indonesia enjoyed a very great tenure with the ASEAN chairmanship. When Malaysia assumes the position, uh, how would Indonesia feel about it? If you have like a big brother kind of role towards Malaysia, holding leadership, or in a way, with if Prabowo's connections, would he seek to influence the position that Malaysia has influence has during this 10 years chairmanship? That remains to be seen. But it wouldn't be something out of the ordinary for Prabowo, who is very energetic in terms of his foreign engagements. Of course, he looks like he has become a bit more tired as of late in the past few years, but it doesn't. He still doesn't deny that he still has that energy to keep on pushing to ensure that his agenda or his interests, Indonesia's interests as a whole, would be maintained internationally as well. So, how this would play out, I think it would be interesting, and I think Malaysia would have to contend with a more proactive Indonesia this time around. So, I hope the Prime Minister and his practice with engaging with China, with Europe, with other countries would prepare him well to engage with this more vibrant and more boisterous president.
Well, I watched the entire event this afternoon, and one thing that I noticed is Ibu Megawati was not there. So the president of PDIP party, which is Jokowi's party, wasn't there. I get a feeling that she still hold a vengeance on Jokowi backstabbing her in last election, the PDIP party as a whole. This is another scandalous thing that I think keep going. And, the that it would be interesting how Prabowo will handle this in the future. That what I would say. He is not directly inflicting this on Megawati, but she took it to the heart, I guess, because not attending this kind of very important event is some sort of like, hey, people notice, It's and she thinks if this is a signal that she wants to give to Prabowo for the next 5 years, it's gonna be a uphill battle for Megawati as well. I think that's it for this episode of Indonesia having a new president from the period 2024 until 2029. And with that, we're gonna go back to Sabah again, Adi. We talk about in Sabah, right? Okay. And let's see in the next episode.